As most of you probably know, I have been a very vocal critic about the current state of Disney all year long. I have criticized every aspect of them. I've criticized how Pixar is nowadays. I've criticized how the MCU is nowadays. I've criticized Star Wars, though that's not necessarily how it is nowadays, but rather it's just my disinterest in the franchise as a whole, which I don't care, that still counts. I've criticized a lot of things about Disney all throughout this year. However, none of them, I feel, I have criticized as much as the live action remakes. Movies that showcase just how creatively bankrupt Disney is. Movies that show Disney is afraid to take risks. Disney is afraid to try something new, and so instead, they just have to regurgitate their older stuff in the hopes that people will pay money to see it just for cheap nostalgia. And that's it. And more often than not, it works. Little Mermaid 2023, Lion King 2019, Aladdin 2019, Beauty and the Beast 2017, they were all box office successes because of cheap nostalgia. Nostalgia sells. And it seems the next Disney movie to be desecrated with this live-action remake bullcrap is none other than Snow White. Now this one's a bit of a bigger deal than all the other ones because Snow White isn't just another animated movie, it's the animated movie arguably. The very first animated movie from Disney, and the very first animated movie ever made in general. I don't even want to go into the whole logistics of how it's really disrespectful actually to make a live action version of the first animated movie ever. I know Disney doesn't own the story of Snow White. I know the story of Snow White existed long before Disney, but I still think it's in really poor taste for them to make a live action version of a very historically important movie that I want to imagine was a nightmare to create. This isn't some 2-minute Mickey Mouse short. This is a full-length feature film that's animated. It was the first of its kind. There's no way the production for this thing went by smoothly. For sure, this thing went through some form of development hell. And I just feel like making a live-action version of it is just... It just feels extra disrespectful when compared to all the other live-action Disney remakes. I'm not sure if this is something that other people have brought up regarding this movie, but I'm just bringing it up there. Now, I had been wanting to make a video on this movie for quite a while now. However, I was largely unable to due to the strikes that have been going on in Hollywood for most of this year, the writers' strike and the actors' strike. Apparently, it's not a recommended thing to make videos and talk about upcoming recently released movies while the strikes were going on. Truth be told, I have no idea what would have happened if I decided to make this video while either of the strikes were going on. I have no idea if it's illegal. Was I gonna get my channel taken down? I have no idea. But I decided not to take that risk. I decided to wait patiently for both of these strikes to end so that I could immediately start work on this video. And then as time went on, I just slowly lost interest in this movie. I just stopped getting angry at it. There's a lot of controversy surrounding this movie. Some of it is admittedly really stupid, and some of it actually is justified. But the longer the strikes went on, the less interested I was in talking about this movie. On some occasions, I actually kind of feel bad for admitting this, but I just gotta admit it here. There were some occasions where I would just be like, you know what? The strikes. I'm gonna make the video anyways. They can't do anything about it. And then I decide very quickly, nah, you know what? It's not worth it. I've just grown largely disinterested in this movie because of the strikes. And I think the final nail in the coffin regarding me losing interest in talking about this movie was the news from late October that the movie would be postponed by a full year. Instead of coming out in March of 2024 as was originally planned, the movie is now coming out in March of 2025. This was what made me lose interest in the movie for good. I just knew there was no point in talking about this movie that wasn't going to come out for another 2 years. It was just ridiculous. I'm sorry. At this point, I just lost interest in talking about it, you know? I would have thought that the moment both of these ended, my first thought would be like, oh my god, finally I can make a video on the Snow White remake, finally. And then here I am now, just completely uninterested and bored. I feel like millions of people have already said like the same stuff about why this movie is going to be bad and all that. I'm gonna say as well that if you clicked on this video expecting this to be one of those, oh my god, did they ruin the movie, they made it woke, then I'm afraid you've come to the wrong place, my friend. I really don't care if a movie is woke or not. I really don't care. That's not the problem with these movies. The problem with these movies is that they are just boring, soulless things. They're just products. They are not movies. They are products. I don't know why everyone says like the MCU is responsible for the downfall of cinema and whatever, when like these movies are right in there, seriously. I mean, I agree the MCU isn't good anymore. I refuse to watch the Marvels. I have literally no interest in seeing the Marvels, and I honestly feel refreshed by it. It feels so good to not care about an MCU movie, to not feel obligated to watch one. But I feel like these are the movies that people should point to as being proof that like modern cinema is trash. And the main thing is just like, I feel like I've said everything that I could possibly say about the live-action Disney remakes. There is literally nothing new for me to say about these movies. There is literally nothing new. You know what the problem is with these movies? They're boring. That's why. They are boring, soulless. They're all bad for the same reason. There's no like unique reason as to why one film is bad. There's no like standout film that's like noticeably worse than all of the other ones. They're all like equally trash. And I highly doubt that the Snow White remake will bring anything new to the table. I'm pretty sure there's a high chance that the Snow White remake will be bad for the exact same reasons that The Little Mermaid 2023 was bad, which in turn is bad for the same reason Lion King 2019 was bad, which in turn was bad for the same reason Beauty and the Beast 2017 was bad, and so on and so on. There's no like unique different reason as to why these movies are bad. It's just the same old. It's a broken record, you know? They're not even funny bad. They're like nothing like that, you know? They're not funny bad, they're not offensively bad, they're just boring as hell, which is honestly the worst kind of bad. If these movies were funny bad, then like at least that would be something. There's like extremely rare instances where they could be funny bad. Like, for example, Will Smith as the genie in Aladdin and Danny DeVito in Dumbo. They provide their respective movies with just a little bit of ironic enjoyment. They basically carry their respective movies. If it weren't for Will Smith's genie, Aladdin 2019 would just be an irredeemable snooze fest, but at least he brings in a little bit of ironic enjoyment into the film. At least I'm able to like watch the film and get a little bit of ironic enjoyment out of it. Maybe like mild guilty pleasure at most. But that's it. And there's also like, there's no instance where like these movies are offensively bad. I mean, again, there are rare instances where they are offensively bad. Like, for example, the scuttlebutt scene in the Little Mermaid remake. But again, that's it. For the most part, these movies are boring. There is nothing interesting or notable about these movies. They're just factory produced, and that's it. You know, I remember last year when everyone was like clowning on the Pinocchio remake, and I was really curious to see how bad it was, because I noticed that it got a significantly worse reception than all of the other live action Disney remakes. I'd say like out of all of the live action Disney remakes, this is probably like the standout one. It's either this or Lion King 2019 that's like the standout one, the one that like gets more hate than all the other ones. I don't know. So I sit down and I watch it and like, yeah, it's really bad, but it's not like offensively bad either. It's just boring as hell, that's honestly worse than being offensively bad. That's just what it is with these movies. They're just boring. They're not bad because of like, oh, they're woke or whatever. They're bad because they're boring. Little Mermaid 2023 is not bad because, oh, they made Ariel black. It's bad because it's boring. The ironic thing is that the aforementioned scuttlebutt scene, that is the only memorable scene in the entire movie, and it is memorable for all the wrong reasons. And it's worth noting as well that I have never seen the original Little Mermaid. Well, okay, I watched it when I was extremely young, but I have zero memories of watching it. I know for a fact that I watched it when I was an extremely young kid, but I have like zero memories of it. And aside from its undeniable historical importance, you know, it started the Disney Renaissance and all that, I really couldn't care less about it. It feels like the kind of movie that like I would sit down and I'd watch it and I would respect its importance to cinema history, but I wouldn't go like all crazy about it. I wouldn't be like, oh my god, this is the best movie ever made or whatever. And the same thing applies to Snow White. I have never seen the original Snow White. Never. And aside from its very undeniable importance to animation history and film history as a whole, you know, like if I sit down and I watch the original Snow White, I'm gonna think like, yeah, it's a good movie, I'll respect its importance to film history, but I'm not gonna go crazy about it either. I'm not gonna parade it around as being like, yo, this is the best thing ever, or anything like that. I'm bringing all this up because Rachel Zegler, the actress that's going to play Snow White, is not white, and obviously that started a lot of backlash, and I really don't care honestly anymore about this stuff. Like, I know I don't want people to come off as me being like, oh, they made it woke, when like I really don't care. I hate the fact that like there's a chance this is just gonna be just like with Little Mermaid, where like it's gonna make people automatically assume that like anyone that dislikes the movie is like racist or whatever, when there are valid reasons to not like either of these movies that have nothing to do with the actress that plays the main characters. This movie is not going to be bad because Snow White is played by someone that's not white. This movie is going to be bad because it's boring and dull and just soulless, just like every other live action Disney remake. I could go into more detail about Rachel's criticisms of the original movie and whatnot, but again, I've never seen the original movie, and aside from its importance to cinema history, I'm not gonna go like super crazy about it. I'm not gonna go ahead and be like, yo, Rachel was wrong, this movie is flawless, you know? Once I look past the original Snow White's importance to film history, I'll just view it as just a pretty good movie, and that's it. But the main thing is just like, I just don't care anymore. It's like the 1-2 combo punch of the strikes preventing me from talking about the movie, and then that culminating with the movie getting delayed to 2025, 2 years later, likely because of the strikes. I don't know. And like for what? Like, what is there for me to say about it? Like, there's tons of other people that have already talked about this movie, so like, what is there for me to say about it that's new? Nothing. That's what. And like, in the event that I watch it, if it's like, God forbid, I'm forced to go and see it in the theaters against my will, or I sail the 7 seas in order to watch it, there's not going to be anything. This isn't going to be like a funny bad movie. It's not going to be like offensively terrible. It's just going to be boring, and that's it. Just boring, dull, the same old shit we've seen a million times before, you know. And then people are going to eat it up because nostalgia sells. That's why people are gonna eat it up, just because of that. And you know that Moana remake that I would make a big deal about? I think about it more, and I realize there's a strong chance, once I get past the initial shock of Disney making a live action remake of a movie that isn't even 10 years old yet, once I get past that, there's a strong chance the movie will just be the same thing. Generic, boring, dull, soulless. The only thing that makes it different is that it's a live action remake of a movie that isn't even 10 years old yet. And given how the movie was delayed because of the strikes, it was originally supposed to like come out in June of 2025, and like production was supposed to start around like the summer or so, but it got halted because of the strikes. So I wouldn't be surprised if the movie got delayed, and there's a strong chance that the movie will come out after the original film turns 10 in November 2026. And like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. It's just going to be the same thing as all the other live action remakes. There's not going to be any like unique, different reason as to why this film will be bad. Whatever you could say about this Snow White remake, I guarantee you the same thing could be said about the Lion King remake, or the Aladdin remake, or anything like that, the Mulan remake. These are just cookie cutter movies that are bad for the same reasons. I acknowledge that this might be a bit of a messed up thing to say given the alleged workplace conditions behind it, but I honestly kind of hope that Beyond the Spider-Verse comes out around March 2025 to coincide with this movie, because earlier this year we had Across the Spider-Verse coming out like the week after the Little Mermaid remake, and it completely obliterated the Little Mermaid remake in terms of critical reception and box office performance. And originally, both of these movies, both the Snow White remake and Beyond the Spider-Verse, were supposed to come out in March of 2024. However, they both had to be delayed. Of course, it's important to note that the Snow White remake has been delayed to March of 2025, while Beyond the Spider-Verse has been delayed to an unknown date. And Beyond the Spider-Verse was delayed long before the Snow White remake was, but still, it would honestly just be really funny to see like a second time in a row where a Spider-Verse movie just completely destroys a live-action Disney remake in terms of box office and critical reception. At the same time, though, it just gets kind of boring to hate on these movies when, like, there's just literally nothing new to say about them at all. You know, it's not even fun to, like, look at them negatively when compared to, like, you know, Spider-Verse and Puss in Boots and whatever. Like, it's not even as fun anymore to do it. One can only hope that Wish could, like, act as, like, a wake-up call for Disney to realize animation matters. The fact that the Marvels has been doing pretty poorly so far, critically and commercially, that feels like we're getting closer. It's like the first sign for Disney, the first, you know, sign for Disney. And we'll just have to wait and see how Wish will do when that comes out. I'm just not sure anymore, and I'm just sick of talking about these movies. You know, I'm sorry, but that's just how it is. I cannot pretend to be, like, angry at this. I cannot force myself to be angry. Oh my god, I can't believe Rachel Zegler criticized this movie that I've literally never seen before. How could she do such a thing? You know, like, I'm not even gonna force out any, like, anger towards this movie, especially since, number one, the strikes prevented me from talking about it, and eventually I just lost interest in talking about the movie. And number two, the delay for the movie to in 2025. That, like, what's the point in making a move? Like, what's the point, you know? It's November of 2023. The movie comes out in March of 2025. There is literally no point in getting angry at it right now. And, like, maybe when we get closer, like, maybe around, like, late 2024, like, by that point, we'd probably have, like, a trailer or two for the movie, then, like, maybe things could change, but I highly doubt that, because, again, it's not like there's going to be a different reason as to why this film is bad. It's not going to be like, oh, this one's going to be special. This one's going to be bad for a different reason from all the other live-action remakes. This is going to be a standout movie. Like, that's not how it's going to go. It's going to be bad for the same reason all of the other live-action Disney remakes are bad. And I'm just sick of talking about these movies. It's boring now to hate on them. So yeah, I just wanted to make this video talking about the Snow White remake, and I just don't care about it anymore. I really don't care. If you want to call me, like, a fake animation fan for this, then, like, sure, go ahead, be my guest. But me personally, I just couldn't care less. I'm sorry. That's about it. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to like, and if you're new to the channel, maybe consider subscribing. Thank you everyone for watching this video, and I will see you all next time. Adios.